Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 87 of ReelBlend, a podcast that came up with some amazing alternate endings for El Camino. A movie that...
If people only could read our text thread.
Yeah, Jake and I went off the rails.
I'm convinced that this is how some of these endings are legit. And I kind of want to see how they go. My name is Sean O'Connell. I'm the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and I'm thrilled to be joined, as always, by my illustrious co-hosts. And I'm going to start this week with Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Hello, Sean. How are you? I appreciate you always starting with me, by the way, because it just really irritates Jake. And it makes
what the shit?
It's just really funny. Because like last week, you like when I was when I was in traffic, you started with me last week, and I wasn't even on the beginning of the show.
Don't trust me. I'm keeping score. I'm keeping score. And the next time we all plan to get together, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, guys, I'll be there. And then be like, oh, sorry, I want you to just have fun with the person that you choose first.
Someone please do a tally of how many times I've started with one or the other person.
Someone's going to do it.
The one episode where Jake started it and everyone hated it.
Yeah, that's the only... one of the biggest reactions I've ever gotten for doing anything in my entire career was, don't do that, you suck.
Well, I am... also introducing Jake Hamilton of Fox 32 in Chicago. Hi, Jake. How are you doing? Reminder, Blenders, that we have a giveaway. We have a prize pack that we're giving away from the studio because they love the Blend game and they love seeing all the interactions that you guys are doing on social media at the ReelBlend account at ReelBlend, that we are going to be doing something really fun. This is for the film Gemini Man, and we're going to have a Will Smith story later on, and the boys did some Gemini Man Junket coverage. So to enter this giveaway, because we want to give you guys some cool prizes, go to the website bit.ly, that's bit.ly/ReelBlendX Gemini Man. And again, we're going to put this on social media. We'll put the link out on social, and you can tweet along with this and find out how to win. You've all been so good at supporting the show and signing up for all the stuff that's going on. It's going a really long way towards promoting the show and getting us involved with studios to let you guys know like the types of movies that they want to promote and the fact that we have these really great games that everybody engages in. So go on and enter for a chance to win the Gemini Man giveaway pack. And we will, let's see, we're going to announce the winner next week. Gabe, is that right? Yes, next week we'll announce the winner. Boys, I'm sorry to tell you, you're not eligible for the Gemini Man pack, unfortunately.
What?
But Kevin's mom, you are.
Yes.
Can my mom legally enter? Is that possible?
No, the much younger CGI version of your mom is able to enter.
Yes.
And she looks the exact same.
My mom does look very young.
With you guys later because I have to go see it tonight. It's either that or Addams Family tomorrow night. So,
can I give a quick shout out to my mom real fast?
There's a film. It is a film. It has a beginning.
It is a film. Yes, give a shout out to your mom, Kevin. What are you saying about your mom?
All I wanted to say, my mom and dad went and saw Joker over the weekend. I know we're going to get into the box office about that. Something that I love is my parents always took me to the movies as a kid. That was like a major tradition for us. It was like everything we would do. Like we would go as a family. I remember power going out, we go to the movies, whatever we would do. So every single week, my parents go to the movies at least once or twice, based on whatever they want to see, whatever's big out there. And I always look forward to the text messages I get from them prior to the movie and after the film. But Joker was the one I was really looking forward to hearing what my mom and dad had to say about it. And like I talked to my mom and dad on the phone for like a long time, like going over all these crazy theories. Like my parents are so into this, just like we are. They listen to the entire Joaquin Phoenix podcast. They were referencing things from the interview that helped them experience the movie in a different way, which was kind of cool. So like my dad recognized the shot that I brought up to Phillips about the kitchen shot when the camera moves slightly. So it was just a shout out to my mom and dad who do listen to the podcast on a regular basis.
What's the most that you've ever disagreed with your mom and dad?
Oh, that's a great question.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I know my mom has a really big sweet spot for like Beauty and the Beast. So she was a bigger fan of the live action adaptation than I was. I'll have to sit on that for a second. That's probably the most recent memory. Like my dad didn't love Joker. My dad was like, was very lukewarm about it. But then after our discussion, he kind of opened up and started liking it more. So I think the theoretical elements that people have questions about, when you talk about them, it creates more of a understanding and or bigger vibe of what you thought about it. So shout out to my mom and dad.
Shout out to your mom and dad. Speaking of talking more about Joker, I forgot to even mention at the top of the show that we're going to have Todd Phillips on this show. And later on the show, Kevin and I will explain how we managed to wrangle that. And we wouldn't have been able to pull off having Todd Phillips on the show if not for Joaquin Phoenix, who helped us out a lot. They're together. They are Joaquin Phillips. So we're moving on. All right, reviews. At the top of each show, we like to read reviews that you guys submit. You can submit them in multiple different ways. You can go to our iTunes account and you can leave us a review there. You can also go to ReelBlend at CinemaBlend.com, the email address, and you can leave us reviews. And this new one comes from Tony in Canada. Hello, Tony. Tony says in his subject line, "This show is as entertaining as the films that you guys cover," and says he stumbled on you guys while studying for finance finals. "I love hearing you guys gush and give awesome, thoughtful conversations about one of my loves, film. Have spent my morning workouts listening to a bunch of your old episodes, and I've been watching a number of films from 2018 that I didn't get to based on your guys' insight. Love the QT interview especially." That's great. Thank you, Tony. We really appreciate you listening to the show and especially catching up on old ones. A reminder, if you guys want to go and leave us reviews, we will read them at the top of the show. We still have a bunch of ones to catch up on, and we appreciate all the feedback. And share, of course. That's the one thing I've been saying too. Like, we've been picking up a bunch of followers on the Twitter account. I think a lot of people, share the show. Like, let people know that if you like this show... No, like the singer? You thought I meant like the singer?
I actually thought the exact same thing that Jake did right now.
I was like, why didn't you tell us that Cher followed us?
Yeah.
No. I just mean, like, if you like the show, tell other people who you think would also like the show. Because one of the ways people are starting to engage in the show is through this weekly poll that we're doing. So I'm supposed to put a poll up every Friday morning.
Ooh, what's your favorite Cher movie?
I don't think I have one. Moonstruck? Yeah. Maybe Moonstruck.
Yeah, it's got to be Moonstruck, right?
I mean, how many other movies does she have? She was in one of the Mamma Mia films, right?
And she was in that really bad movie with Christina Aguilera.
9?
Oh, yeah.
No,
it was something else.
Burlesque?
Did
Something like that.
Did Gabe just say that? Was that Gabe who said that?
What's 9?
9 is a Daniel Day-Lewis with Sophia Loren and Judi Dench and Nicole Kidman and Fergie.
It was also terrible. Anyway, weekly polls. That's another way that you guys are able to engage with us by voting on topics that we put up that then become conversation starters here. And last week's poll was, what is the most anticipated movie of October? Now.
Also, you chose some weird movies.
Well, I didn't want to choose Joker because it was out already.
Yeah,
right?
but it could still be people's most anticipated.
Well, not only did I not choose Joker... First off, why am I taking the heat for this? Gabe, you do the poll, for God's sakes.
Who chose those movies? Whenever I saw those choices, I was like, what?
I don't take responsibility for choosing the movies. And I didn't choose Joker because it was open already. Then I chose Judy, which people were nice enough to remind me opened in September.
Yeah.
So it's not an anticipated October
Sean.
release. But see, personally, I haven't seen it yet, so it's still anticipated
Hey, Sean,
for me.
did you have Endgame in there?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right, I was just curious.
Gemini
Die Hard
Man.
was an option for some reason.
He had Pulp Fiction in there.
Some people voted for Judy, for God's sake.
Citizen
so
Kane.
I wasn't alone. Some people are still anticipating it. All right, so here are your choices. And Kevin, you tell me which one you think won. Judy, Gemini Man, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot,
Ooh.
and then I put Other for the fourth one, and then people would have to tell us
As in movies that actually come out in October.
Well, if you put Other, does that mean like everyone just chose Joker? I mean, I guess Reboot would be the one on there that I think most people would say.
Well, Reboot won.
Yeah,
actually, with 36%, and then Other got 35%. So it was one of those two. And the Other.
When do you guys see it?
I don't have a.
I think I'm going to be at the Shining Hotel when Kevin Smith comes to Chicago.
Are they doing a screening of it? Like, I don't have.
Yeah, he's doing a Q&A.
Well, they're doing. He's doing the road show, but then they are doing a Fathom event where I believe they're showing Reboot one night, and then they're doing both of them back to back. I think it's the 15th and 17th of this month. I think it's next week. So if you're a fan and you can't make it to the road show, which is a bit more expensive than the actual Fathom event, you could see it that way. I mean, but most cities, I mean, I've met Kevin Smith a bunch of times, but I still bought meet and greet tickets to meet and greet him and Jay at the Roadshow when they come to Virginia. They're coming to the Arlington Cinema Draft House. If anyone knows my area, you know that venue's pretty cool. But yeah, apparently they have it's going to be cool. So if you're a fan of Kevin Smith, just look up. I think it's rebootroadshow.com. It'll give you all the information.
And Kevin won't do this for himself, so I'll do it for him. My new fun activity to do is to find Kevin Smith interviews and watch until he name drops Kevin McCarthy.
It usually doesn't take long.
It happens a lot, yes. I got it really funny, too, that Kevin Smith, for the longest time, he was the hockey jersey guy, right?
Yeah.
Now he's that purple suit, that purple
the
jacket
maroon
guy.
jacket, right? The purple jacket. What is that jacket?
I have no idea, but he wears it everywhere he goes.
But there's got to be a story behind it. The hockey jersey made sense because didn't it say Smod on it or Smodcast? And
it was his picture and the Batman logo and all that. Yeah. Right. Now it's the purple jacket. It's got to have a meaning. You're right. But he wears it everywhere he goes.
I probably should know that. I'm a huge fan of his, but I don't know. Wow. Yeah.
Ask him at the Roadshow because you'll see him. You'll meet him. Here's what people voted for when they picked other. Zombieland 2, double tap. People said Joker. A lot of people said Jojo Rabbit. And as Gabe wants me to remind everybody that all of those titles do open in October and not September, like Judy did. So speaking of Joker, let's talk about the box office. Huge weekend for Joker. The film did $96 million domestically, $152 million internationally, which meant $248 million worldwide for the R-rated standalone Joker origin story, a movie that, the more that this happened, at first it was like a surface level thing, and now it's to the point where it's making me really angry. Like, people are willing bad things to happen at the theaters, right? Like, if there's any kind of disruption, people are jumping on it, making a headline. Some guys were like smoking cigarettes at it, and that became like a headline. Like, enough about trying to will this stuff to happen. It was just a movie that opened, and it triggered a lot of conversation. I mean, I saw strong opinions on either side from people who thought that it wasn't as serious or noteworthy as the movie maybe thinks that it is, and other people who thought that it was a masterpiece and Joaquin was great. I love the fact that it's triggering all this conversation, but I am very surprised at the box office, though. Are you guys surprised that it did as well as it did?
No. I feel like going into that weekend, I had a pretty good, I feel like the buzz on this, my phone lighting up with people asking me questions about it, people coming up to me at work asking me questions about it. A good vibe sometimes, how much, and Kevin, you can attest to this, because we air Junket pieces every day, and sometimes an interview with a celebrity airs and people are talking and they're kind of doing their thing while it's airing. But when Joaquin was speaking at my station, people were quiet because they were listening to what he had to say. People were interested in this movie. And for me, the best thing to come out of this box office is the fact that this might be the new wave of comic book movies that we get. We might start getting more Logans and Jokers, these like kind of one-off, real, raw, R-rated, less worried about world building and more worried about, and then I feel like you have the potential to get A-grade filmmakers. Not that the Russos aren't A-grade filmmakers or James Gunn, but bring in some massively hard hitters who will go, look, I'll do a one-off, and I'm not going to listen to studio notes about setting up a world because I'm not interested in that. I want to tell one story, and I want to do it without chains on, and I want to do it R-rated. And I feel like with the box office that this got, I feel like we're moving in that direction. I feel like that's the direction that we're going.
Two things about that, though. One, only certain characters warrant that. I don't necessarily know I need to see Mr. Freeze directed by Darren Aronofsky.
Oh my God, how great would that be?
I would actually watch that.
I want to see that movie.
Amazing.
But two, studios so desperately want franchises.
Dude, they don't want R-rated Bane.
See, I'm already my mind is already racing here. I'm thinking about a Mr. Freeze movie.
Yeah,
I already have a product placement tie-in scene
with the Requiem for a Dream score in the background.
All he has to do is walk into a 7-Eleven and get a Slurpee and then just look down and laugh. That could be a great product placement moment for Mr. Freeze.
Okay, yeah, I'm over it.
I'm down.
Terrible.
I'm over this moment.
But yeah, I get your point, totally. If they have the courage to, and even just the sort of business sense to say, do we want one good hit that's going to generate this type of money versus trying to launch a movie that produces sequels?
And props to Warner Brothers, because I feel like between something like Joker and then something like It, which especially It Chapter 2, which are kind of off the beaten path. Yes, they come from very popular source material, but they're still off the beaten path, hard R-rated films.
Yeah.
And rather than try to dumb them down into a PG-13 version, the studio trusted and went, you know what? If we're going to do this, let's do it the right way. And I mean, It Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and then Joker all paid off handsomely. And hopefully that's telling Warner Brothers, hey, maybe that's what we need to be doing more often.
Right. Yeah, to answer your question, Sean, I wasn't surprised. I thought it was going to hit 100. Just based on
so close.
It was so close. I know the original projections were around 80 or so, and I'm very happy it made the money that it did. I mean, to me, like Jake said, like when Deadpool hit. Deadpool opened the door for Logan, right? So Deadpool, making over 130 whatever it was $1 million opening weekend for an R-rated superhero film. And then we got Logan. You could argue you got Logan as the result of the box office of Deadpool. And then, that's the fascinating part about this. People want grounded, Logan specifically, grounded, darker material about their superheroes and villains because it puts it in a. I would give more credit to Nolan, even though Dark Knight was 13. That really was a transcending film for genre, but also grounding it in a reality that felt like you were watching your superheroes and villains within a real world scope. And I think that then Logan obviously happens. Joker is we've said this a million times. I can't believe a major studio released this on over 4,000 screens. I mean, it is a film that normally you would not see. It's a risky, ambiguous film that leaves it wide open at the end for anybody. Even Joaquin Phoenix doesn't even know exactly what's real and what's not real. And I think that's pretty impressive. So box office wise, I think it's great.
I want to bring up an interesting point. I think that maybe they didn't know this when they greenlit it, but I think they're really hoping that, Joaquin specifically keeps them in the best actor race. And this will almost transition into our next point. I don't necessarily know if he gets in.
I think he wins. I think he wins.
Wins.
No question.
Wins.
Oh, it's over.
Really?
Dude, he's going to win the Oscar.
It's over. It's over.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, you did this with Bradley Cooper last year.
Well, first of all, Bradley Cooper last year, I still think deserved to win.
Okay, and we have this argument every year where I go, dude, we haven't even seen everything yet, man.
Hold on a second. Well, I actually have seen a lot of the movies.
You have seen a lot.
Okay, first of all, Marriage Story I've seen, which is supposed to be a big one for the actor race. I've seen Uncut Gems. I've seen my point is though, and I think
Sandman's great.
Wait, Sean just said something even crazier than I just said, Jake. Sean just said he might not even get it nominated.
I agree with Sean more than I agree with you. I think this year the best actor race is so stacked. I think it is possible that Joaquin Phoenix does not get nominated.
That's insane.
And I say that because for every person that loves this movie is a person that freaking hates this movie.
There's no way that Joaquin Phoenix does not get nominated.
I don't think anyone can deny that Joaquin Phoenix is amazing. I think if you don't like this movie, and there are plenty of people who don't, you don't rank him as high.
And my question is it an Academy movie necessarily? Like, is the older branch of the Academy going to get behind a performance like this when there are so many other, like, no matter what happens? And listen, I think he deserves a nomination 100% for sure. I think he's amazing. That's not my qualification for this. I'm saying there are so many people who are contenders for Best Actor specifically this year that no matter what happens, when those 5 names are announced, there's going to be some very talented people on the outside looking in.
And I think I actually do agree with Sean that Joaquin could be one of those people. I hope that's not the case. Like that's genuinely probably my favorite performance so far this year. I would be really heartbroken for him to have turned something like that in and not get a nomination for it. But I agree with Sean 100%. There are going to be a lot of people who are told over the next 3 months, you just gave one of the best performances of the year, and come Oscar nomination morning, they're not going to hear their name read.
I completely disagree with the idea of him not getting nominated. I think he's 100% getting nominated. I think he's going to win. But
and
nominated.
Kevin's been right on this stuff more than then you and I both have also.
He said, what are you talking about? He said Bradley Cooper was 100% locked to win Best Actor last year.
No, but I remember there were a couple of categories last year that Kevin said, like, he's like, oh, 100% that's going to happen. And I was pretty on the fence.
Well, statistically, if you say 100% for everything, eventually you're going to get it right. Jesus Christ.
Fair enough.
You guys can laugh all you want, but I guarantee you will hear Joaquin Phoenix's name on nomination day, and you're going to probably hear it on the Oscars.
Will be surprised if he gets nominated. I just think we very much live in a world where he could not get nominated.
I'm not saying Taron Egerton, you know, for Rocket Man. Yeah. Like, that's someone who's kind of on the outskirts.
Yeah. Tell me what could help Taron Egerton would be that Golden Globe is going to help Taron Egerton.
Probably. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Tell me one person who is more of a frontrunner for Best Actor in a movie you've seen right now.
Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, I won't argue
answer me that question.
Why, it doesn't have to be a movie I've seen.
No, Jake, answer the question.
Why does it have to be a movie I've seen? Because we follow the Oscars. DiCaprio?
DiCaprio.
No, I don't see. I think Joaquin gets in over DiCaprio.
I think Leo's so good.
Why does it? I don't understand why it has to be a movie I've seen. Because right now, what everyone is saying, and granted, I haven't seen the movie, but right now everyone is saying Adam Driver.
Okay, but I'm asking you. Out of the movies that Jake
what does it have to do with whether the movie I've seen? It makes no sense.
This is my question. But
that makes no effect on the argument. Well, we all follow the Oscar race.
I'm asking you a personal question.
What about Eddie Murphy for Dolomite? Eddie Murphy?
I think Eddie Murphy's potentially a challenge to get in, and I think if he gets in, I think he's a front runner to win because I think we live in a world where people want Eddie Murphy to have an Oscar.
He's the story. That's the story, right?
All right, Sean. Since Jake refuses to answer this question,
he does. Sean, he's very adamant about not answering this question. It's weird.
Out of all the movies, Sean, that you've seen, who do you think is the current frontrunner to win Best Actor this year?
Why does it have to be the movies we've seen? We all follow the Oscar races for a living.
My answer is, it would be Leo if he didn't win recently.
Okay.
Frontrunner right now out of movies that I've seen is probably Joaquin. However, I will agree with Jake in that there's two names that if they get in, they become really interesting stories. Eddie Murphy and Adam Sandler.
Am I wrong in that I'm hearing everyone say Adam Driver is the front runner? I have not seen Marriage Story, but that's the headline I see.
I'm not hearing that he's a front runner.
I follow.
I'm sorry. And there's one other name that I'll throw out. Whoever emerges from Irishman. If it's De Niro or Pacino, right?
Well, they're going to put Pacino in supporting.
I've heard Pesci steals the movie. I've heard De Niro's actually a little quieter, meaning that
I've heard Pacino steals it from Brad Pitt, the Oscar.
Oh, that's interesting. I've heard. See, okay, so this is interesting to me because I think it's crazier to say that Joaquin won't get in versus Joaquin will win the Oscar. That's wild to me that you don't think that he will get nominated.
There is a stack of 20 actors who are all thinking they're going to be nominated for Best Actor next year.
By the way, every time we all say, I've heard from somebody, it's just the three of us talking to each other. So we all just hear it in our text chain. So one name that we have not brought up in this conversation leads us to our next point. None of us think Robert Downey Jr. is getting in. And on the Howard Stern show this week,
should he.
All right, well, let me finish the story first. On the Howard Stern show this week, he said that he told Disney, in essence, don't campaign for me for Endgame. And I think some people sort of noticed there were like some 4-year consideration campaign ads coming out, and it was a lot of VFX, below the line type stuff. I think they are going for Best Picture, having come off of the Black Panther nomination last year, but they were not going after Downey for actor. We had a little conversation before we got into the show today that is it possible that Downey saw this field that we just spent the past few minutes arguing about and realized he might not get into it anyway, because I know they pushed hard for Michael B. Jordan, last year for Panther. They wanted to get him a nomination. And I thought in any other year, I would make an argument that in a way that you recognize someone for a larger achievement, Downey could have gotten recognized for all the work he's done as Tony Stark, right? And this even Endgame was the movie that gave him the opportunity to do the most acting, probably, in the role. So if you're going to recognize him, if it were a weaker field per se, I wouldn't mind so much that he got in. But I think based on everything that we just talked about, he's not cracking a 5, with this performance. Kevin, you disagree with that? Or you think he belongs in?
Oh, I think he belongs in for sure. I think it's a brilliant performance. And I think the culmination of the emotion of those films since Iron Man 1 to now, I understand, and we all know that the Oscars don't necessarily give a person the Oscar for the certain film that they're being nominated for. It could be a career award. It could be a make good award. There's so many classic stories of that. I think Robert Downey Jr.'s performance as Tony Stark and Iron Man throughout the MCU, emotionally, is some of the best work I've seen. And I think, if anything, I think he should have won for Infinity War if he was going to get nominated or win for anything. But I do find that because the film is a superhero film, unfortunately, while they gave Black Panther a Best Picture nomination, in my opinion, the nomination that really was deserved last year was Michael B. Jordan, as you mentioned. But Black Panther got in, which is totally great. It was a big monumental moment. But I understand Downey Jr.'s idea of not wanting them to put his name in, but it is a very stacked race, and I do wonder if it was because of how good the years turned out to be. I do think Robert Downey Jr. deserves an Academy Award nomination for playing Tony Stark, and I think this would be the film to do it for.
You know what I would like to see more than Downey getting a nomination? And I don't even think they don't do this anymore, but they used to. I would love for the Oscars to give an honorary Oscar an achievement Oscar, I guess, to Kevin Feige. I think
That'd
for what
amazing.
he has pulled off over the last 11 years, right? I feel like that should accumulate into an Oscar. Because then they used to do like achievement Oscars back in the day.
Oh yeah, for sure, and especially like in his role as a producer.
Yeah,
the Academy would basically recognize
because
that, right?
he correct me if I'm wrong. You know about Marvel more than I do, but like he weaved this story. Maybe he didn't write the scripts, maybe he didn't direct the films, but he weaved this baby, and I think this is the year. If you're gonna honor somebody, right, give it to Feige, right?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I don't think that's, well, I mean, that could actually happen. And the Oscars would do something like that to help telecast ratings, right? Like if you said, right, hey, we're going to do something to recognize Marvel. That's the way to do it.
Which they still might. It is ABC, so they still might.
Oh, yeah. That actually makes me
Does
believe
Endgame get a Best Picture nomination?
No.
I don't think
it does.
Honestly,
I think it does.
I feel like this year for movies just went up to an 11. I mean, remember when how much I did not want to put my top 10 list together back in London, in June, because I didn't like anything this year, and now
the time that Tarantino quoted you.
Yeah, both of us. Which blows my freaking mind. But now I have probably 5 locks on my top 10 with a slew of movies that I'm looking at going, there are probably 15 movies coming out that could be on my top 10.
Do you know what gets a picture nomination before Endgame? Rise of Skywalker. If Rise of Skywalker is truly great.
I don't think
love
so.
Of God, let it be great.
I'm sure it'll be
truly great.
But Endgame, I think, is going to get nominated just because it's the end.
Interesting.
Dude, the same reason Game of Thrones won the best show at the Emmys this year in drama is the same year that Endgame would be nominated.
Well, but by that logic, Rise of Skywalker gets nominated. Yeah, it's a 40-year saga.
Yeah, but see, Rise of Skywalker doesn't have the... See, here's the thing. Here's the difference between Rise of Skywalker and Endgame. Rise of Skywalker is part of a trilogy that just started 3 years ago in the sense of, this has been a 40 whatever year span, but this specific story, this 3 story, is not as anywhere near in the scope of a 23 story picture that ended up in Endgame. I'm not saying Star Wars isn't big deal, of course it is, but it hasn't been as consistent over 10 years like the
because they weren't planning it from the beginning. Like it wasn't like George Lucas back in the 70s. I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying it's not like and that's why I mean the Marvel. Obviously I like Star Wars more than I like Marvel, but the Marvel achievement is arguably a little bit more impressive. Just because if Lucas back in the 70s had been like, okay, here's my plan for freaking Episode 8, and we'll make that in 40 years, then
Did he know Han Solo's backstory?
You know what? Guys.
Sean, I'm going to ask you a question right now that is probably going to be just as hard for some people as picking their favorite child. I already know the answer for Jake, so there's no need to answer that. Plus, I'm still waiting for him to answer my first question, so we'll wait for that.
The first question is stupid, and it makes no sense.
Not a stupid question. It's actually a great question.
No, it makes no sense. Why? Because you asked a question to get me to answer Joker because you know because I haven't seen as much. That was a very pointed question.
That's not true. Your favorite movie of the year is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So how would I have not known that your answer would have been DiCaprio?
You know that I think Joaquin Phoenix is better than DiCaprio in this year.
Okay, here's my question.
But we all followed.
Right,
sometimes some shows it's best for me to just sit back and let you two go.
Jake and I spent the whole weekend together. This is how brothers fight. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Sean,
yes.
If you were given a choice, one of these would exist and one of these would not exist.
Like never exist?
Never exist. I already know Jake's answer.
All right.
Star Wars or the entirety of the MCU?
Oh, the MCU. I mean, I would choose the MCU to exist.
Same.
To exist.
Oh, so Star Wars never happened, but MCU happened.
Yeah, the batting average on the MCU is far superior to the Star Wars
with you.
movies.
Jake, would you rather have had Star Wars happen than no MCU ever happen?
Without question. Fuck the MCU, Star Wars all the way.
Whoa.
Okay,
Jeez,
I have one hypothetical
you are
question.
On some kind of like anger trail today.
Because there are so many amazing movies. I know there's so many amazing movies and actors that could win Oscars for their work this year. Like some truly amazing. If you could guarantee one thing wins an Oscar, one actor with their performance, one movie wins Best Picture, one cinematography, whatever. If you could guarantee one Oscar win for this year, what would it be?
Adam Sandler.
I know it.
Really? Sandler?
Yeah. Because I just love the idea of Adam Sandler being a Best Actor.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I love that idea.
Kevin, what about you?
It's an amazing movie and a great performance. So.
And to Sean's point, when you see Uncut Gems, it is a performance that you want to get behind and just cheer. It's like it's a powerhouse performance. Like, honestly, probably Brad Pitt win for Hollywood.
That would be mine.
I want some type of. And I actually said this to Brad Pitt in my interview, and people sometimes will say, "Oh,
great name
you're sucking up or you're being too nice." I looked at Brad Pitt in the eyes and I genuinely said to him, "I think you're one of the greatest actors of our time, and I love Jesse James." And I don't think he hears that enough, because what I mean by that is, and I've said this before on the show, he's such a famous guy that people forget how great of an actor he is. And Jake and I have this discussion a lot about like him being an underrated actor. So I feel like, in my opinion, to see Brad Pitt on that stage accepting an award for, in my opinion, the best performance of his career, I think that would be a great validation to Pitt's acting skills, rather than just going, "Oh my God, Brad Pitt's great looking. He's a big time celebrity. He was married to Angelina Jolie," whatever it would be. I want people to go, "He's a damn good actor." That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's fair. Jake, do you have one?
It would be Pitt. It would be Pitt for Hollywood. I want to live in a world where, it's kind of like with Kevin. I want him to know that we know that he's a great actor.
I want to point out too that there is we banked an interview that we're going to run later, so I didn't tease it just yet. But we will have Ed Norton on this show, and he's going to be discussing his new film, Motherless Brooklyn.
We are?
We are. And this allowed Kevin, because I'm going to trumpet Kevin's horn again, because he won't do this. Kevin, go back and tell young Kevin that within a month's time, he interviewed both leads for Fight Club.
You know, that's an interesting question, or interesting point, because Jake and I have had a lot of discussions about like old school junkets and kind of which junkets we would love to have been at. And I think if I were to have one in my lifetime, it would have been Rodriguez and Tarantino for Grindhouse in the same room together. But the second place.
Did you do that, Sean?
No, they did. I don't think they did one.
They did that. No, they did. That was a room that existed. Yeah.
Oh, I did not do that.
Yeah, these are rooms.
We should tell him
existed.
the room that we're getting. Ooh, we'll tell you after the show. A room that we're getting coming up.
Okay. The other thing though would be the Fight Club Edward Norton Brad Pitt room. And what I find fascinating about that junket, and I wish I could have been there for it, was and 20th Century Fox, that's a hard movie to sell. what was the vibe of that junket? What could they talk about? What could they say? What things were being asked to those actors? And so, yes, to Sean's point, getting Brad Pitt, and then Edward Norton was long form. I mean, the interview you're going to hear on ReelBlend is over 30 minutes long, and we cover everything from Primal Fear all the way up to Motherless Brooklyn. I rewatched Primal Fear last night, and Lauren had never seen it, and I was just sitting there.
So good.
I was just waiting for her jaw to drop when Norton starts clapping, and he just goes into the reveal. He tells me, and I'll tease this, he tells an amazing story about how Richard Gere saved that ending. You won't believe what the studio initially wanted the movie to end with. They were a little concerned about Richard Gere's character being beaten, in the sense of like he wins the case technically, but at the end of the day he loses, right? Because Ed Norton kind of wins everything. You won't believe like how much Gere went to bat to save that ending. Like
that's awesome.
That ending exists because of Richard Gere, and Ed Norton says that ending exists because of him. So that's, all right, it's pretty.
We are
cool.
going to have that. That is a great tease for an upcoming episode that we will have with Ed Norton on the show.
I feel like this episode is good. Is it just? I feel like we're really hitting some good stuff with this episode.
It's okay. Yeah, it's all right so far.
Except for you not answering that question.
Except for that one question you left dangling there. Last week on the show, I teased a set visit that I was able to go to. A trip that I was going to, and now I can at least tell you guys this much.
Oh, we're over it.
It was a set visit, and I can tell you where I went. There's a lot of things I still can't reveal about it. I can tell you guys I went to Atlantic City. And I can tell you guys that it was to visit the set of Zack Snyder's next film, Army of the Dead, which he's filming for Netflix. I think I can tell you who's in it. Well, everyone probably knows who's in it. Dave Bautista. Dave Bautista is the star of it. A bunch of other names that I didn't really recognize. Like Bautista is the main person in it.
Are there 300 cast members in the movie?
No. Well, no, but there's a ton of zombies. It's a zombie. Here's the premise. And I think the premise is out there. And then I probably have to stop at this. There was a zombie apocalypse outbreak. And this is years after there was an outbreak. And they've managed to quarantine the zombies to Las Vegas. They've walled the city around Vegas, and the last remaining zombies are in Vegas. And a man who owns one of the casinos says, all of my money is still in my casino in Vegas, and I need to get it out. And he hires Bautista and his team to infiltrate the casino. So it's a heist movie.
Kind of a great premise.
It's really,
and it's like a $90 million zombie film.
What
that's
a
going to be on
great
Netflix.
premise.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't give any real details about what we learned at the thing. I can tell you I can tell you the premise, and I can sort of stop there. But I can talk about just meeting Snyder. Like just meeting Snyder and seeing him. This is what I love about this, and I think Kevin, you'll really get geeked about this. This is the first thing he's done since being taken off of Justice League. Like he's been radio silent for a really long time, hasn't been working. This is a passion project that he'd been shepherding for a long time, was going to turn it over to another director, finally realized...
Before the days of Dawn of the Dead?
No. It was after Dawn that he came up with this concept, and he was sort of workshopping it for somebody else to direct. But it was definitely after Dawn, and then realized he just wanted to sort of take it back on. And it was just exciting to see him in action on his set, directing this big action set piece with full makeup zombies, like not CGI. But one thing I did want to point out is that he's making the shift over to digital. And he talked a lot about the benefits of it. But he's such a camera wonk. Like he's so, believe me, he like kind of when you heard Deakins talking about the benefits of digital or how he approaches digital, Snyder is very much the same way. He's not a million takes because he can. It's still all very, and in fact, one of the things that he's doing as a result of this is he's relying on natural light for most of his scenes.
Ooh,
and
like
the
Chivo.
way that the digital camera, picks it up and the way that it sort of transitions into these scenes. So I can report back that it looks great, but I can't give you very many details about it. So
I have an unpopular opinion. I think that Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake is better than Romero's.
That's interesting.
And I think that's what makes me excited about him doing a zombie film.
It's better made. It's better made, but like Romero's is like a groundbreaking achievement.
Sure, but I mean, it's the same reason why I would say like I think Vertigo is a better movie than Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane paved the way for a film like Vertigo, sure, but I think Vertigo is a better story. So it's in the sense of like I think it moves better. But I understand what you're saying though. But I think Snyder is one of my favorite filmmakers ever. I will constantly defend him because I feel like he's in that Michael Bay boat where people just assume explosions and certain action levels. He's made some
slow motion.
Yeah, made some films that weren't necessarily. I still think the nightmare scene in BVS is one of the coolest tracking shots I've ever seen in my entire life. I love
Batman vs Superman. I will defend that movie.
Well, his cut of it too. Like the extended director's cut is such a better version.
And Man of Steel, obviously. But I mean, to be honest, one of the cool things about our text thread, and you know, we've all been doing this for a long time. Sean longer than me, Jake longer than me. But theoretically speaking, we technically should be a little jaded at this point, but I don't think any of us are. And I mean that because of over time people get, used to jobs or whatever. And Sean is just constantly texting us updates from the set.
Oh, that was the best.
And
I'm just the best.
I'm just reading the text and freaking out. Like I'm just visualizing.
You could read Sean's excitement
and see
through these digital pixels put together to form words.
Yeah.
I could see it. Was as if Sean was screaming through my screen. It was the best.
Well,
cool.
to be on a set with Snyder, like Snyder to me, I remember interviewing Gerard Butler for Hunter Killer. He was here in DC. And the way he spoke about Snyder's passion and the way he talks about film on set, it exactly correlated to exactly the way Sean described his visit to that set, which is cool to me because Snyder's persona to Gerard Butler could be a little bit more in the private realm where like maybe press wasn't there and he was still that excitable on set just with Gerard Butler, whatever they were doing in regards to filming a scene. But then if that same energy was transferred to Sean when he was visiting as a press member, that just goes to show to me that it wasn't put on just because press was there. That's just who Snyder is when he's on set.
That's who he is. Well, I'll give you one example. Yeah. I think I can share this. He was showing his actors, but he was showing Batista something that he wanted to do. Coming in with a machine gun, essentially coming into a scene with a machine gun and firing it off. And they do something really neat where they do like a flash of lights because they're going to put muzzle blasts in later. Snyder was actually saying he has an app on his phone that he can add muzzle blasts to stuff because he was saying to his guy, he's like, here's where I'm going to put the muzzle blast in with the app. And so Snyder was on the monitor, mimicking the thing. But apparently there was a meme that happened a while ago, and it was called the Zack Attack, where people got a clip of him, I think it was on BVS, holding like a Amazonian gun, and he was in front of a green screen, and all of his fans traced him out and then were putting him into scenes. So you would find Zack Snyder like green screened into other big battle scenes, and they called it like #Zack Attack. But Snyder comes running around the corner to the monitor and he's like, oh my God, we had a real life Zack Attack. Check this out. So he shows up on the monitor that he's like holding the rifle. And he's like, I can't let anybody see this because they're going to turn it into a Zack Attack. And then he goes like running back into the thing to go direct. It was just infectious. Like the energy to be around him was infectious.
You know what's crazy about what you just said is how in tune Snyder is with the internet. He is... even he posted that photo, I think, on whatever it's called. Is it called Nero? What's the name of that software he uses? Vero. Yeah. Where it was the release, the Snyder cut photo or whatever, that someone had put up. Sean, real fast, I know we have to wrap up, but what was that? Someone put that billboard in New York?
Yes. So there's a group of people who really want the Snyder cut released. They're lobbying hard on their own, and they're raising money to generate awareness. Half of the money that they raise also gets dedicated to the American Association of Suicide Prevention. Obviously, Zach and Debbie's daughter committed suicide. It's part of what removed him from Justice League. And these guys believe that, they've heard Zach say numerous times that he has a cut of Justice League, that he wants Warner Brothers to eventually one day let him release it. So during New York Comic Con, this group of people, this organized group of people, took out a Times Square billboard that had quotes from Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg, Jason Momoa, and Zach himself, and just lobbied for the release of the Snyder Cut. And they were also...
What did that cost?
Thousands of dollars. I mean, it's somewhere in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. And then...
I would have thought it would have been way more than that.
And then I think they donated to run for 3 days. It ran for 3 days consistently in Times Square. And
That's
then
awesome.
they had a booth at New York Comic Con, and they had a sign, a picket, that had said hashtag release the Snyder Cut, and they were taking pictures with fans who came by. Our friend of the show, Rob Liefeld, stopped by the booth and got his picture taken with it, and he did a video that said, "Yeah, I want it released. Hell yeah, release the Snyder Cut." Like
That's cool.
fully on board. That kind of like when we had Kevin Smith come on and discuss the existence of the Snyder Cut. So let's
out
plug
there.
that. It's out there.
Go back into our ReelBlend library of episodes, find our Kevin Smith episode, because he gives a very impassioned answer about the Snyder Cut, but also his movie reboot's coming out, so you can listen to that as well. So we have a lot of older major guests who have been on. We got to get Snyder on, though. That'd be awesome if Snyder came on.
That'd be amazing. All right, speaking of major guests, I want you guys to be able to talk about your weekend, because I was trying to track you guys through all of your events. How many people did you guys interview over the course of this past weekend? For which projects did you tackle?
Jake, you take this.
Gemini Man, El Camino, and the Kaminsky Method, which is the Michael Douglas
nice.
Netflix series, which I got
But it's the timing of how we did it,
out of
though.
that.
Well, how did it work? I mean, that's Michael Douglas. It's Will Smith. It was, how much running around did you have to guys?
I mean, luckily, logistically, and this is such like a first world problem, but we've had some weekends where we have 3 or 4 junkets, and they're all in 3 or 4 different hotels. This worked out very nice in that it was all in the same hotel. It was in the hotel we were staying in, which was great. And there really was no jumping between junkets. Sometimes when it's mixed like that, you'll do 2 people for one movie, then you go downstairs to do 4 people for another movie, then you go back upstairs to finish the movie that you started with, and it can get a little mixed up. So we did, let's see, we got Ang Lee for Gemini Man, along with Clive Owen and Benedict Wong, the special effects people. Which was cool. They gave us a really interesting VFX presentation the morning of the junket. Then we also got Michael Douglas and Jane Seymour for the Kaminsky Method.
Have you guys done Douglas before?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. Because that's a great one to get.
He was fantastic. I got to tell you a story, my Michael Douglas story. And thank God for. I talked to you guys about whether or not I should ask that one question to Michael Douglas.
And it went well.
And it went surprisingly well. And then we got Aaron Paul for El Camino. And then that night at the red carpet is where we got Will Smith. Kevin and I had a great moment with Will Smith.
Your answer went viral. Jake's answer went viral about Will Smith and The Matrix.
It was a short little blip, but it was. And here's the deal for people that know about red carpets. It's feast or famine. It's you're on the carpet for multiple hours, and everyone here knows it because everyone here has done it. You are bored out of your mind for about 99% of your time there. You're sitting around, you're just waiting on people to show up. That final 1%, you're more stressed than you've ever been in your entire life.
Yeah.
Because whether or not you have a story depends on how the next 90 seconds go. And you gotta, not only are you stressed, you gotta, if you can get a question, you gotta get the word, you gotta put one word in front of the other, you gotta make sense, you hope for a great reaction because that's all you're gonna get. And we're talking a Will Smith movie, and that's the only time we were getting him. So he showed up late, and once he got there, he did what a movie star should do, which is spend time with the fans. The downside of that being us, jaded journalists, and went, well, hurry up and come over here and talk to us.
But that's what makes him so popular. Him, Cruise,
exactly.
Tom Hanks, all those guys spend so much time with fans.
Yeah. By the time, and I'm gonna set it up and then let Kevin take it away. By the time he got to sort of the pit, which is not like the national affiliate, because all the national, the E's, the extras, the Entertainment Tonight's, the Access, they get sort of, standees, their own stages to talk with him on. And then the rest of us are sort of in this pit, kind of all squished together, kind of with our hands up in the air with a microphone. By the time he got to the pit, we heard the words that you hate to hear whenever you're doing a red carpet, which is, I'm sorry, guys, we got to group you. And what that means is you're no longer getting him one-on-one. We're putting him in front of about 10 people. All of you shove your mics, and one of you lucky assholes gets to ask a question. And so Kevin and I look at each other because Kevin and I, we are, not to like pat ourselves on the back, but we are personalities on our show. My show doesn't want to get sound from someone else asking a question. They want to see me asking Will Smith a question. So Kevin and I look at each other as in like, and luckily the studio put us together on the carpet. Like, how are we going to pull this off? How are we going to do this? And Kevin, I'll let you take the rest of the story away.
So that day itself was absolutely insane. I want to set some kind of stage here to kind of give the idea of our minds, because the night before we see Gemini Man, we're prepping for our interviews on Sunday. And then as Jake said, Sunday morning, you're literally there interviewing Ang Lee, which was iconic for me. I'd never talked to the guy before. I mean, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, that was the emotions are kind of what I want to display here. You know, we're going back and forth to Clive Owen. Jake's geeking out with him about Sin City. I'm talking about Children of Men. We're just kind of having like a field day with these gigantic people that we've loved and watched over the years. Then you jump up to Kaminsky Method, and you're sitting down one-on-one for 5 minutes with Michael Douglas, and you're talking about everything.
Who is a freaking
down.
Class act, by the way.
Right, stands up, meets you at the door, sat there and talked to me, asked me how DC was, and
he says your name.
Yeah, we talked about that, and then he uses your name in the interview, and then you go over to Jane Seymour, and she's talking all about Dr. Quinn and Somewhere in Time, and it's just like this weird day of like crazy classic filmographies. Then we go up to Aaron Paul, and we get to interview Aaron Paul for a Breaking Bad film, specifically only asking him Breaking Bad questions for 5 minutes, which is even more insane. And then
when that happens, it's so great.
Right, and then that's kind of the end goal, right? When you get a junket for some type of spin-off or sequel, like Halloween, for example, was a great one, because all you have to ask is original Halloween questions. You don't have to even go into the new one. Because Jake and I and everybody, we all spend our time trying to get bites of these classic movies from actors within some type of connection to the movie they're currently promoting, but in reality, you get to ask anything you want. So then you have a couple hours of downtime, and Jake and I meet up for a drink beforehand. We just sitting down. We're talking, and we're going over our questions together. We're rehearsing. I mean, this is how our day is going. We get to the carpet at 4:45, and it wasn't until 7:00 that the real action started for us. So it's that 2.5 hour mark, as Jake just said, where you're just like waiting. I have a flight to catch at 9:30. That's a red-eye flight to get me home to do the Edward Norton interview that you're going to hear on our show in a couple weeks. And Jake and I, like Jake said, we asked the studio to be paired together because we both know that how we want our shot to look. We both want to be in the shot. For people who don't know and love the behind-the-scenes stuff, when you're on a carpet, generally speaking, cameras can't really get a shot of you with the actor unless there's enough room. So Jake and I are like designing our shot with our photographer. We're like, Jake's going to cheat this way. I'm going to cheat this way. We're going to pass the mic to Jake. I mean, these little details that we're discussing. And then Will Smith, like Jake said, gets grouped. And we know at that moment that we are either going to get him or not. And like Jake said, we both have to run him the next morning. And thankfully, where they grouped it, Jake and I were the first and second person of that 10-person group. So generally, someone out of those 10 people was going to ask Will Smith the one question. I threw mine out. Jake threw his out.
Honestly, tell the full story, which is, and I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back. When he came up to us, he recognized us and said, "My boys, it's my boys."
Yeah, that was cool.
And he shook our hands, and that's in the movement that I knew in that moment, because he was only doing one question per group of 10 people. I knew in that moment we're both getting him.
Yeah, and that was the crazy thing. So I know we'll wrap this up, but I mean, just that day in particular was a lot. There was a lot going on from a fandom standpoint, a lot going on from just like a movie journalist standpoint. But I mean, that's what we do this for, right? I mean, that's a long day, but looking back on it, I'm so thankful for every moment of it. I mean, just sitting there with Michael Douglas was crazy. All right, now we got to wrap this up, but I just wanted to give a perspective of that.
But the fact that you then red-eyed back home to DC, and then you did Edward Norton, as a sit-down too, it's insane. Jake, what was your big answer? Share your big answer for people who haven't seen it.
Well, the question that I asked, because I was obviously the whole concept of Gemini Man is that there's an older Will Smith and a younger Will Smith, which brings about the very sort of generic junket question of, what could you ask yourself? What would you tell yourself if, when you were 23, if you could say something now? And I didn't want to ask that.
That's not generic. I like that one.
Well, I mean, it's a great question, but I knew by the time he got to us, he would probably have been asked that 10,000 times. So I wanted to try to do a spin of that, which was if you could go back to an old set that you were on, maybe an old scene that you shot, give yourself a piece of professional advice to maybe adjust an aspect of your career, what is the set you'd visit and what's a piece of advice? And he gave a very short but funny answer, which was he'd go back to the set of Wild Wild West and say, hey, asshole, why didn't you do The Matrix? Because obviously he famously he turned down playing Neo to play.
And you know it's a good answer when his publicist is laughing too.
Yes. Yeah.
Very true.
So it went mini viral, as I say, over the past 36 hours.
I also want to share that Will Smith came up to you both and said, my boys, right? And moved on. We're now running into an issue in the house, in my house, that when I'm telling Michelle a story and I'll mention I'm doing something with the boys, she doesn't know who I'm referring to. She doesn't know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and
that's great. Wait.
That's like on junkets whenever people are like, Jake, where's your boyfriend? And I know that they're talking about Kevin.
Or when I introduced Jake accidentally the other day as my wife, Jake.
Yes.
Well, yes. So I want an example of this. So Sean's wife's name is Michelle. So you're having a conversation with your wife, and you go.
I will give you a very concrete example.
I can't wait.
We go to the Savannah Film Festival every single year. I go down and I cover the Savannah Film Festival, and my family looks forward to also going. They get to reap the benefits of me going down to cover it. This year in particular, we're trying to get the dates down pat, and we realize that Michelle's going to be out of town the weekend that we would normally get to go. So for a while, we were kicking around like, do I want to go and just bring the boys with me? Because they like Savannah too, and they would sort of enjoy it. So we were having that conversation. It sort of got tabled. In the text chain, meanwhile, all of us are sort of planning on potentially going down to the Savannah Film Festival. And we're working out something where maybe we'll do some dates down that way, potentially get some talent interviews, see some movies, and bring ReelBlend to the Savannah Film Festival. That's part of our plan. So then I said to Michelle that night, plans are sort of coming together for Savannah, and I think we're going to go down with the boys. And she was like, oh, really? You talked to PJ? And I was like, oh, no, not PJ and Brennan. I'm going to go with Jake and Kevin and Gabe. And
is that why I randomly got some college tuition money in my account recently? I was like, what is this?
Yes, money going to the boys.
Yeah, and my lunch was made today.
And she said, we officially have to now start differentiating somehow between our children and the
if
guys
you look
that you do
in
the show
Sean's family room, it's half photos of his kids and then half photos of Jake and I.
Jake has gone around and photoshopped your faces on some of our favorite family photos.
I actually really have done that. Dude,
all joking
do you remember
aside,
when we were in that shuttle on our way to Creed in New York and we just kept taking photos of Sean's family, photoshopping our faces?
Yes, that was really because Jake and I were sitting behind each other or in front of each other on a bus from Philadelphia to New York. By the way, I keep this with me when I record.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. Kevin is holding up the shot of all of us with Tarantino. Yes, which is a nice one. Okay, This Week in Movies. Let's move on to This Week in Movies. Jexy. Anyone seen Jexy? Adam Devine's movie?
No.
Oh, that's like the Siri. It's like the Siri movie, right? Where,
I think so.
There's a thing with Siri? Yeah.
No, nothing. All right. No. Addams Family. Did you guys see Addams Family?
No.
Nothing. All right. Parasite. I've seen
I
Parasite.
promise we watch movies for a living.
Have you guys seen Parasite?
Parasite. No, God, I want to see Parasite.
All right,
Sean, take this one because I just got invited to a screening that I can't go to because I'll be on vacation and I'm very upset.
It's outstanding.
It looks wild.
But it's one of those movies where I can't give you any details. Like people have said, go into it as clean as you possibly can. And I did that. I tried to avoid all the details that I can. I'll say this about this. I'm not going to give away any plot details. It's one of those films where you have no idea what is about to happen next at any given moment throughout the entire story. It's the director who did Snowpiercer, and
which, by the way, is a masterpiece. If you haven't seen it,
and the way that he used that sci-fi element of the train to comment on class and the rich versus the poor and themes like that. That gets explored in Parasite, but just in a completely different fashion. He's still obviously making comments about that, but it's a story that is extremely believable, but also extremely disturbing. And any time that you think you have it figured out, it makes such a left turn to keep you completely off guard.
Wow.
And
I'm so intrigued.
People are really discussing whether, so it's a South Korean film, and they're saying it could potentially become the first South Korean film to earn a Best Picture nomination. I wonder about that. I'll be curious to see how it gets received as it goes throughout the course of the Oscar campaign. But it's really, really great. Yes.
Sean,
Kevin.
did you see the viral video from the Gemini Man red carpet where we found out the director of Parasite's favorite Will Smith movie?
No, I didn't.
You guys haven't heard about this one yet?
No.
This went crazy viral.
That's a great question. I would ask the director of Parasite what his favorite Will Smith movie
is Para Bright.
All right, can we talk about Gemini Man? Are you guys able to review it? Is the embargo up? Are you able to
there are already
discuss it?
reviews on social on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, yeah.
Let me check.
We ran our review. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we ran our review. The embargo got lifted a while ago.
Okay.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs middle.
Jake?
Yeah, God, it's bad. It's just,
it's really bad.
It stands on the shoulders of technology that I don't even think are that impressive. I mean, I was not impressed at all with like the young Will Smith. It looked like a video game version of Will Smith. We didn't even see. We were talking about this in the text chain before we started recording. Less than 20 theaters are actually showing it in the frame rate in which I don't understand why Ang Lee, and Kevin, you can educate me on this. Why does Ang Lee care so much about this whole frame rate thing? Because he keeps doing it and then no theaters show it that way. So then why does he do it? Because it just inflates the budget to an exponential degree.
So this is such an interesting thing to me because this is a classic situation that reminded me of exactly what Cameron did on Avatar, where you're putting the technology and the special effects first, and you're putting the story and the script second. I will say that Will Smith is amazing in the movie. That part, I will say, his performance is incredible.
Well, every knock I hear about it is just that the story is terrible.
Story and script and visuals aren't great. To answer Jake's question, the 120 frames per second thing is very interesting to me. While I didn't mind what Jackson did on Hobbit with 48 frames, I thought it was an interesting experiment. Your mind is so used to 24 frames a second that is what cinema looks like, in the sense of when you put Taxi Driver on, when you put Pulp Fiction on, when you put Forrest Gump on, those movies are moving at 24 frames a second, and that is how your brain perceives cinema. What Ang Lee's doing is he's trying to create a first-person realistic experience, which I don't particularly like as a film goer because it's more of it's not a movie anymore. You're trying to almost like you're playing a game or you're in a real-life setting. 120 frames a second, the reason why you shoot it in that format, especially with I don't know if it's in 3D 120 or 3D 60. We saw 3D in 60 frames a second, which I can speak on. It looks like motion smoothing on your TV screen. So they're basically, your eyes see at a lot more than 24 frames a second, technically speaking, from a scientific standpoint, which is why movies look a certain way, because we're used to the way those frames capture our eyes. When you boost the frame rate up the way he's doing it, you're essentially smoothing out the image in a way where it's looking more and more like real life. I haven't seen the 120, but I'm assuming it looks extremely smooth, and it's a viewing experience that I don't think is very cinematic. I think it's distracting. I was talking to someone about this. I don't know who this was, but even the guy who introduced the movie beforehand said it might take you a couple minutes to get used to this. Right, Jake? Didn't he say that?
Yeah, and that was in 60. They didn't even show it. And that's the thing, too. You're going to let Ang Lee do this, but you're not even going to show it to press in the way that he wants it to be. We saw it in 60.
And 60 is still a lot more than 24. So I'll tell you right now, even 60 felt strange. The reason why you go 120 is because then you lose as much of the motion blur as possible. So if you're in a quick action sequence, the more frames you are shooting it at, the more smooth the motion should be. So for example, if you're in a scene where someone's quickly coming at you or there's a punch flying across screen, you're probably going to get motion blur like you are right now when you're seeing me through the Skype. When you shoot 120, it's supposed to smooth that out and make it more clear. This is my understanding of it, and any tech nerd out there can call me wrong if I'm wrong. This is just my understanding of the frame rate element. But it is an interesting thing. I understand the want and kind of idea of it. It's a first-person experience. I was talking to one of the tech guys outside of the theater. It's first person, not third person. So if you think about a movie experience, this is kind of what he was saying. When you're watching a movie, it's a third person experience. You're in the theater watching it and viewing yourself that way. The way he wants to make the movie is that you are Will Smith. That's
I don't
the
like
perspective. And I think that it's very weird to watch, to be honest. The shots feel like you're watching like Call of Duty. Then there's like scenes. But the biggest issue here, and which is what really bothers me, is the mouth and the teeth aren't there yet. We have not gotten to a point where
the eyes have gotten better.
Eyes have gotten better, but we have not gotten to a point. This is the first time in the history of cinema that a CGI human plays a leading character. I believe that is the statistic. So if you're thinking about it from a perspective of if that second 23-year-old character that Will Smith is playing in the movie is a gigantic character, he's got to look real. And when he's talking, it looks like an old Doom video game. Like the mouth does not... The mouth does not work, Jake. I mean,
now I gotta go.
You're 100%. Yeah, you kind of need to see it just to see what we're talking about. You like visually, like literally need to see it.
Did the mouth work for you? That bothered me so.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. And in fact, I think that's why if you watch a lot of the trailers and clips they've released,
they don't show him talking.
They don't show him talking. It's a lot of like stern expressions in which you look at it like quickly and go, "Oh, because that looks okay." And then the second he speaks, you go, "Oh, that's not right."
Gabe
it still exists in the uncanny valley.
Gabe asks,
the 3D wasn't even that good.
In the doc, how does this make us feel about The Irishman? Any concerns at all about The Irishman?
So Irishman is de-aging. This is not de-aging. So Irishman is literally CGI of an actor being de-aged.
Of an actor. So why didn't they just shoot Will Smith that way and de-age?
They did. So Will Smith was shot with dots on his face, but then they created a completely digital character. Now, from what I understand, what that means is even his body. Everything is digital. Like I think a de-aged character means that the face was worked on in a CGI capacity, but it's still Sam Jackson's performance, like there, physically from the set. His body's still there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna check it out. Well, you guys will be thrilled to know that my screening tonight is neither 3D or any additional frames per second. So it almost feels like Paramount is giving up on this as the movie rolls out in theaters. So
Jake makes a great point. The filmmaker shot it in 120 frames a second. Nobody's going to be able to see it in that format except for a select few number of people. Most people are going to watch it in 24 frames, just like you are tonight, in either 2D or 3D. So that to me is a fascinating thing to think about. If 99% of your audience...
The same thing happened last time he did this, when he did the Billy Lynn's long halftime walk.
Yeah.
Same thing happened.
They abandoned the rollout halfway through.
Yeah.
I admire Leaf for taking risks and doing things differently, but any director and any person will tell you the first thing that matters is story, and that's script. And if your technology isn't at the level of your story, like in my opinion, like Avatar, while it looked cool, it didn't age well, but it looked cool, the story wasn't there. So it was distracting to me. It was like a theme park ride versus a movie. I guess a theme park ride would probably be the best way to describe Gemini Man, just not a great theme park ride.
God, I got to tell you, Gabe made me laugh so hard with the joke. Gabe came to Charlotte yesterday. I'm going to share that with the ReelBlend family. I think some people saw it on the Twitter feed. And we were talking about Avatar, and we were talking about Cameron, and we were talking about how great it would be to get some of these producers and directors for franchises, like just like you guys said, like you were able to get Aaron Paul and you could talk about Breaking Bad. And we were thinking like, wouldn't it be amazing to get Cameron to talk about Terminator now that Dark Fate's coming back out? You know, yes, Tim Miller is directing it, but how cool would it be to get Cameron to join the show? And then we were talking about how he's lost in Pandora and he's not going to have any time to do a podcast necessarily. And we were like, how is Cameron going to do the junket for that? Like, is he going to come out at all? Or is he going to emerge after shooting part 5 and just be like, well, how did the first 3 movies do? Like, what happened with them? I was laughing so hard because it's true. I mean, he's just going to be so buried in production and editing on these sequels. But I don't know. We'll see how that rolls out. I'm about to throw it to our interview for this week, which is with the director of Joker, Todd Phillips. And what I can tell you guys is that when we went out to do these interviews, and you guys got to hear the part with Joaquin Phoenix on last week's episode, an interview that we're obviously very, very proud of in ReelBlend history. This is a big time movie and a great performance by an actor that we all really appreciate. And so to get him to sit down for 30 some odd minutes and discuss his craft was great for us. But we were not supposed to get Todd Phillips. The course of his day was booked. He did not have time to sit down and do a podcast, and we were okay with that. But after our Joaquin Phoenix interview, he had such a good time apparently, this is what we're being told, that he went out and saw Todd Phillips in the hallway and said, those guys were great. And this story was repeated to me recently, like within a day or two. And I'm not sure if he even told you guys this. He went out into the hallway and he bumped into Todd Phillips and he said, those guys were great. Like, I just had a great interview. Are you talking to them today? And Todd was like, actually, I'm not. Like, they're not on my schedule. And he said, you have to sit down with those guys. So while we were there at the junket, the Warner Brothers people were nice enough to say to us, hey, do you guys have time? Can you just wait around? Like, we can't guarantee that you're going to get Todd, but there's a possibility because Joaquin had so much fun with you guys that Todd is now thinking about trying to fit you into the schedule. And
I had to leave. I had a flight.
Yeah, Jake was running to a flight, but Gabe and Kevin and myself had much later flights. And so we said, yeah, that's fine. And I mean, to the point where at one point the reps came around to us and said, look, his next thing that he's going into is 40 minutes. And I'll tell you guys that he may come out of that and the answer could be no. But if you want to wait, it could be yes. And we were like, yeah, we're not going anywhere. We don't have anything to really do. All we were going to do was go see Rambo later that night. So we said, yeah, we'll wait. And we were hanging out. We were talking. We were making small talk with the studio reps. We kind of had questions. We had questions because we thought there was a chance we might get him. And then they came in and they said, why aren't you set up? Like, go, like get set up. This is going to happen. And we kind of scurried and we got together. Gabe set up all our equipment and then Todd Phillips came and joined us. Kevin, you want to throw anything else in with the story or?
Well, it was interesting because looking back on it, I kind of wish we were more prepared in the sense of like going into that day, we did not, I mean, the interview's great for what it is. And in the sense of, what I mean by that is going into the day, Joaquin was our only podcast interview. And so we had like basic questions also with podcasts. And I think you can tell this in the Joaquin Phoenix interview and other interviews that we do. You get a flow going. You don't feel rushed. You know what your time is. You know you have 30 or 20. And right when the Todd Phillips thing was coming to be, we were essentially like picking up our equipment, right, running into a room, finding a room to get it. He was wrapping up an interview. We had very little time to set up. And the reason I'm putting this into perspective is because I want you to know the vibe of what happened before we sat down. And thankfully to Warner Brothers and Todd, everyone was so cool about it and letting us get our time to set up. And then Sean and I literally had to go, all right, what are we asking? This, real quick. And then
if you've never been in that scenario before, is unnerving.
So thank you very much to Warner Brothers and a very special thank you to Joaquin Phoenix for securing the ReelBlend interview with Todd Phillips.
All right, let's go ahead and start. All right. First of all, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
This is a question that I would love to dive in with you because I've seen it a second time and I noticed the number 1111 on a couple of the clocks in the social services office, it's 1111 on the clock, and then when he beats the time card punching thing up, it's 1111. Can you talk about, was that intentional?
It's a coincidence.
Yeah. But do you mind me asking what that meant?
I know. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a coincidence that it's happened. That's 2 times. Is there another time too?
I saw 1040 another time. That was it.
Yeah, no.
But 1111.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay. That's very interesting. I'm fascinated by your choice of how to create Gotham. We've seen Gotham a number of different ways in the Nolan films, in the Burton films, even prevalent on television, but we've never seen it this way. Talk to me about just your idea of approaching the aesthetic of Gotham, because to me, it's the first time we got to see it pre-Batman's story.
Right.
And Batman's not in your story, but we almost know for him to be born, the city has to become an absolute cancer, like a hellhole.
Right.
And that's what you kind of showed us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for us, it was all about creating a city on the brink, so to speak. Mark Friedberg, my production designer, and myself, and a ton of the crew, we really worked hard at coming up with a Gotham that's, of course, different than the other movies, but really spoke to a broken down city on the brink. And you're right in that this is something Bruce Wayne's going to grow up in and something he's ultimately going to probably have to clean up.
Right.
So, yeah, there was a lot of thought put into it. And we shot practically, as you know, in New York, on the streets. We obviously did some CGI world building, to extend things and erase things you have to erase, satellite dishes and certain skylines and things, all kinds of stuff that's like every freaking corner has a Chase Bank. You got to change that, you know.
Joaquin mentioned that while he was doing the stairs scene, the dance down, the teenagers were in the windows giving them the finger and shouting.
Yeah,
that is hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think. You know, if I had to balance it out, we got a lot more benefit of shooting on the street, but the pain of it was not nothing, you know? I mean, you saw it last year with all these paparazzi photos showing up online. You guys probably ran them. You know, I'm teasing. But, you know, like you know, a normal movie set, you don't see the Joker look doesn't get revealed by some long lens paparazzi shot on 124th Street.
You were never going to green screen it or
we just wanted it to feel grounded. I think I said this to you the other day. We wanted to run everything through a realistic lens and have everything feel as grounded as possible. And part of that was stripping away all the green screen and stripping away all the stages that you shoot on and just taking it to the street, so to speak. But with that, you get a lot of the nonsense, like teenagers giving him the finger while he's acting.
And Larry's cinematography truly is amazing. We discussed this the other day. I mean, there's shots where he's running down the street and that camera's just moving beautifully with him. I find it interesting how you open the film, specifically the choice as a director to give us a scene and then cut to that really cool shot with the awesome font that you use for the Warner Brothers element. Can you talk about what decision process you go through when you go, okay, I'm going to open with a scene, then hit it with these credits?
When you say hit it with hit it with Warner Brothers Presents and da-da-da.
And like it's written like yellow.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, and then talking, not to be too technical, like those titles we filmed out on film and laid them back in, so they felt. So if you notice, they even jitter a little, like when you watch an old movie, you know, because the registration pins are kind of a little jittery. So the title Joker and then Warner's Presents, a Village Roadshow production, all that stuff was filmed out on film and put back into the movie to feel like film titles. But okay, not to go down a wormhole about titles. But that opening thing, really, we opened the movie with this old school Warner Brothers logo to tell you that
the three little red lines.
Yeah, and
cool.
and you know what's funny is you don't realize nowadays, but when you watch old movies, that's what it was, right? It starts with the logo and then the movie starts. Right. Nowadays, there's 4 or 5 logos. It's like NASCAR because they have all these co-financing companies that put money into movies because movies are so expensive and they all want their logo on the front. So I had to go to all those co-financing companies and DC, by the way, because DC gets their logo. Right. And I was like, please do me this favor. I don't want your logo on the movie, not because I don't respect what you did and I love the company and you guys are a big help, but I want it to feel like this movie came out in 1979. Right. I just want that old school Warner Brothers logo and the movie to start. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they were cool and gracious enough. DC was awesome. I thought DC would be the hardest. They were actually the easiest. Huh. And they got it. Their logos are at the end of the credits. Great, whatever. But that was a big give from all 3 of those companies. Because it's not nothing. And anyway, so you see that old Warner's logo and then boom, we're in this big wide shot and you meet, you know, I always think character introductions are important in movies. Obviously, we take it something we think about when we put these movies together. And just seeing Joaquin in that mirror doing all that stuff is a guy who is clearly searching for an identity, searching for who he is. Is he really this happy? Is he really this sad? Is my life really a comedy or is it a tragedy? You know, that's what that is before we boom cut out to the...
It's perfectly open.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool opening. And we have the benefit in that, not to talk too much, but it is a podcast.
No, we want you to talk.
Okay, we have the benefit in that is playing that local Gotham news radio underneath it, which gets the audience very immediately up to speed of where we are, when it is, although it doesn't say the year, you know it's not now, and the conditions in Gotham. We talk about a garbage strike. We hear residents being interviewed on the street saying it smells and it's this and it's oppressive and, you know, all that stuff.
You mentioned
all that work getting done in about a minute, and it's just like, oh, this is not the normal comic book movie.
You mentioned the year real quick, and I know that you don't want it to be specifically time-stamped.
I'll tell you the truth.
But I find it interesting that you have Zorro and the Gay Blade and Blowout, which are both specifically 81.
Yes, the truth is it's 81. The reason I keep saying late 70s, early 80s is because I don't want to deal with somebody on the internet which is going to come and going, you know, that car was actually not out until 1984. Why is that car? So I always go, it's the late 70s, early 80s, and I only say because I don't want to deal with all the
which
sticklers.
movie were the Waynes seeing that night?
Waynes were seeing Zorro the Gay Blade.
Were they really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which we looked up, and that's one of the most wild plot lines I've ever heard of in my entire life.
But yeah, so on that marquee, it was Zorro the Gay Blade, which came out in 81, and as you said, Blowout, which also
Palma,
came out.
man.
Yeah.
How different is this movie if De Niro says he doesn't want to do it?
Oh, I mean, it would suck for me because I worship De Niro and he's great in the movie, but we would have found another actor to do it.
Okay.
I mean, not to be cold-blooded, but I mean, every decision, every time an actor says no and somebody else does it, I think the movie's entirely different.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't like to imagine it. It would be different,
Right.
but yeah, it
Only
yeah.
because it's, you admittedly borrows from a lot of his classic films.
Oh yeah, but I mean, by then we didn't put De Niro in it because of that.
Oh,
we
really?
Put,
Okay.
Well, meaning
wow.
it wasn't like, oh, this will allow us to do that. Is what I
Right,
mean.
right,
That's
right.
not why I put De Niro in it.
Sure.
We did put De Niro in it because it was definitely a nod to King of Comedy.
Now,
So
does
it'd
he
be
bristle
fun.
at all at that? Does he think like, it's too self-referential, I don't want
No,
to...
he dug it. He
dug
got
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he got
That's
it.
surreal
And to
for
be
you.
honest with you, I think if you talk to him or Martin Scorsese, and I don't want to speak for either of them, but I'm just going to guess that the attention that's been given to King of Comedy, which is, as far as a Scorsese goes, is maybe one of his most overlooked movies, and it's brilliant. I don't think it's the worst thing that I have 22-year-old journalists coming up to me saying, Jesus, I watched this King of Comedy movie, never even heard of it last night, blew my mind. Like, I think that's awesome. If I'm Martin Scorsese, to have this gem that a lot of people hadn't seen suddenly being talked about a lot, I think it's cool.
As somebody who you just said you worship De Niro, to be behind that camera, directing him in sequences that are kind of referencing King of Comedy, like especially specifically the TV section element of it. What is that like for you to be behind that camera? I know you're making a movie, you're directing a film, you have a vision in mind. Do you ever stop and go, what the heck?
It wasn't so much in reference to King of Comedy. It was really, for me, I think he's the greatest of all time actor, literally the greatest of all time. So for me, even if I was directing Meet the Fockers, I'd be like, I cannot believe I have Robert De Niro here. Really, like.
Do you geek out?
Yeah, I did. I did when I first met him. I went to his office and I said to him, look, I'm a big fan. I don't want to be a jerk, but I got to talk to you for like 10 minutes just about stuff. Yeah. And then I'll be a grown man, I'll be a professional, and I can direct you like a colleague. I can do that, but I have to get like 10 minutes out of my system. And he goes, oh, all right. And then it turned into an hour. Okay. And I mean, literally, we're talking about, I think, Raging Bull for an hour.
Are you asking him questions?
Yeah, I'm just going like, what about this and why that and da-da-da. I mean, like,
Is that your seminal one, Raging Bull?
Yeah, I mean, they all are, but I don't know why. I think he had an image of Jake LaMotta in his office that I started with, and for some reason, we just went in that direction. But I could have done 6 hours on Casino. I could do any of it, right? So I just got deep with him. I mean, like deep into his stuff for an hour, and then finally I was like, okay, thank you. Now we can talk about this, and we did. And then but one day, I will approach him again and just do like a 3-hour session fantasy camp.
That's so great.
We know we got to wrap up, so we'll do two quick more, and then I guess is that okay? One more. Okay, go ahead.
One more.
John.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Well, we talked to Joaquin about the makeup process and the final look, and you joke about that. Like, we were all so curious about how is he going to look, and the image gets out. That was the first thing you put on Instagram. The first official thing that you revealed was him turning into the face, and I think that was the moment where so many people were like, "What is this going to be?" And then you showed it, and they were like, "Oh shit, I'm in." That looks great. So, can you talk about the process of just coming up with the final look of what your Joker makeup was going to be? Because Joaquin said it was like photoshopped on him before.
Yeah, of course. We were doing these concept drawings with this guy Hugh Scioti, who's a beautiful concept illustrator in New York that Mark Friedberg, our production designer, introduced me to, and so Hugh and I were just going back and forth, and Mark, about what he looks like. We know it's a big deal, and but it's also inspired by the idea that he's a clown, that his look came from his clown look, from his job that he has at the beginning of the movie. So, a lot of the reactions we got on the internet was very much like, man, Joker doesn't have a red nose. Why does he have a red nose? And we just had to sort of put our head down and ignore it and say, this is our Joker and this is why it's like that, and because he's inspired by clown. But we didn't do as many versions as you might think to settle on that. Hugh and Mark and I really found this look pretty quickly. I mean, we probably messed with his wardrobe more than his makeup, weirdly, only because when we saw it, we all were like, oh shit, that's cool, that's the thing. So it came together pretty quick, and then we brought in Joaquin and Nikki Lederman, our makeup girl, put it on his face, because it's different Photoshop than on a face. And then I still remember, I still have pictures on my phone. I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. And we just kind of stuck with that.
That's amazing. Well, we're wrapping up. I just want to say thank you for doing this.
Thanks for sticking around.
Thank you for this movie.
Late.
You're not late at all. Thank you for this movie. Thank you for making, we've been talking about this for weeks now. And I think you truly have directed a masterpiece.
Oh, thank you.
And I just want to say thank you for telling stories that make me want to go to the cinema.
Awesome, guys.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Right. Appreciate it.
How does the 70 look? Does it look cool?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it looks bonkers. But, you got to, like, I don't know what's the last thing you watched. The flicker, like, you got to get used to the flicker for a minute. It's wild.
All right, thank you so much again to Warner Brothers and to Todd Phillips for agreeing to take the time during a very busy Joker Junket. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with him, and especially if you didn't catch it, go back to episode number 86, where you can get our full interview with Joaquin Phoenix in honor of the Joker. Now, we've been talking a lot about Gemini Man and Will Smith, and this week's Blend game, we are playing hashtag WillSmithBlend, naming our favorite performances or films by Will Smith. We've had a lot of great interaction with people on Twitter, on social media. And so I've been told that, Kevin, you get to go first in your Will Smith blend game.
Okay, I'm only going to mention one movie really fast because I think it's an underrated film that Tony Scott did that not a lot of people talk about, that I think is one of my favorite Will Smith movies ever. It's Enemy of the State.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Jason Lee's great in that. I mean, it's just
Hackman.
really good. Hackman, that is such an underrated film, and I only say that because I feel like it's not really brought up a lot anymore. I just remember seeing it and loving it, and I thought it was brilliant. I mean, Tony Scott was, rest in peace, sir. We love your work. My ultimate, I feel like it's obvious. I almost feel like I can choose each one of ours this week, and I'm gonna say them.
Ooh, interesting.
I want to see if I'm right. I think Jake's going to go with Independence Day, and Sean's going to go with the first Bad Boys. That being said, Bad Boys 2 is no question, and I have not read their choices, that I don't even have them. I'm just guessing based on knowing you guys. But Bad Boys 2 is truly one of my favorite action movies of all time. It's a bloated 2.5-hour, full-blown R-rated action film that is mixed with perfect amounts of comedy. Pantoliano, I love Joe Pantoliano and Will Smith's vibe together in that, especially when they get back from the boat chase and like they're in. My favorite thing is Will Smith turning around, looking at the TV, going, "Wait, oh, you see right there?" Like he's like pointing at the TV as like explosions are happening, and like Joe Pantoliano's like, "Woo, saw!" Like I don't know that movie. I love Bad Boys 2. I just think Will Smith. Here's why it's my favorite performance of his. When you meet Will Smith in real life, he is nothing like that guy. Like that guy, it's a very different person in the sense of like the way he carries himself, the way he speaks. There's just something about Mike Lowry. Mike Lowry is him, and then who? I can't remember Marcus
Burnett.
And Martin Lawrence was actually at the premiere for Gemini Man. It was pretty cool. It was like a Bad Boys reunion.
That's cool.
But there's two scenes in Bad Boys 2 that I wanted to highlight. One of them is the scene when Martin Lawrence's daughter is being taken to the dance, and this young kid comes over very innocently, opening the door to Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, giving him a really, really funny piece of dialogue. Sean, you know exactly what scene I'm referring to.
Reggie. Of course.
It's such a great moment. And they do the ludicrous line. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, that movie just moves. It's fun.
Okay, just to throw out, and I mean, obviously I don't condone this in any way, shape, or form, but I went back to rewatch that scene. That movie uses the N-word way more than I remember.
Yeah,
Holy
I mean,
cow.
Well, that movie in particular, that movie had that movie was very R-rated.
Like afterwards, like sometimes you go back and you think like, you can't make this movie anymore today. Like we went on a little tangent of like, you could never pitch that movie. I kind of wonder how Bad Boys 3 is going to follow that vibe. Now it's not Bay, but like Bad Boys 2 is, by today's standards, really, insensitive to a lot of different things.
And so to that point, I will say I don't condone anything in Bad Boys 2. Just as an entertainment, as an entertaining film, it's a movie that I can watch over and over and over again. And I think that Will Smith and Martin Lawrence's chemistry is perfect. To me, that's my favorite thing he's ever been a part of, is that Bad Boys 2 film.
Let's see how right Kevin is with his guesses. Jake, you chose.
I chose Men in Black. Oh, and here's my stipulation. Here's what I'll say. No, because Kevin, I do want to give you credit for this. I actually do think Independence Day is a better movie. But I think Men in Black is a better vehicle for Will Smith. Men in Black was really, for me, growing up, the first time that I remember, because he's good in Independence Day, but I feel like he's just so good in Men in Black, and his chemistry with Tommy Lee Jones is so fantastic. And it's the first time that I realized, not only obviously as a great actor, but like that I realized how much of a movie could be anchored upon his charm. And he is so charming in that role, but he's also such a badass in that part. I mean, he's an NYPD cop before he ever joins the MIB. And his chemistry with a very dry Tommy Lee Jones, obviously we know what he's like in person. And also that character is us as an audience. You know, we are all being introduced, and he is reacting in such a way that we all wish we could be as cool and as clever and as he's reacting how we wish we could react, but none of us are as cool or as funny or as charming as Will Smith is. And I just feel like he's so unbelievably good in that part. And also the theme song that came, I still think that's a great song. The theme song that came out. I mean, remember when that summer came out? The summer that movie came out. I mean, that solidified the July 4th weekend as Big Willie weekend.
Yep.
And so it's by no means do I think it's necessarily the absolute best movie he's in, but like I said, I think Independence Day is probably a better movie. But in terms of what makes a Will Smith movie, I think Men in Black is my all-time favorite. And one of my favorite scenes is that him on the bench. And it's Tommy Lee Jones speaking to him. And do you remember that monologue where he says, 1,500 years ago, everyone knew the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everyone knew the Earth was flat. And 15 minutes ago, you knew that we were alone in this universe. Yeah. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow. And I just fucking love that. I love that. Anyway, so Men in Black is my choice.
Yeah, that's really good.
I'd argue Men in Black's a better movie than Independence Day.
You guys remember when they made an Independence Day sequel? You guys remember
I got cut out of the Independence Day sequel. That's how bad of an actor I must be.
Jake, be happy.
I got cut out.
You should be very happy.
You don't want that on your IMDb, man. You're good.
Not at all.
Neither does anybody else in that film.
Kevin, you're batting 500 because I am going with the original Bad Boys.
Nice.
Now this is an argument Kevin and I have been having for as long as the show has been in existence. Bad Boys versus Bad Boys 2. Obviously, I prefer the 90-minute stripped down Michael Bay take on Bad Boys.
I'm with you, Kevin.
I went and saw the original Bad Boys in theaters at least a dozen times. I just kept bringing people back to it because, first off, Bay is just in his element. And the two of them are so great for so many things that Kevin talked about, like the attitude. You
forgot your boarding pass.
The chemistry between Martin Lawrence and Will Smith is tremendous. I love, too, that the first Bad Boys opens on a scene that's so ridiculously stupid that the movie hardly recovers from it. Let's think about this for a second. They're driving in Will Smith's extremely expensive sports car.
The Porsche, right?
Yeah, the Porsche. So, Kevin, you'll remember this. Martin Lawrence is eating fast food in the car, right? Yeah. And he drops French fry and it goes down between the seats. And Will Smith's character gets really mad. Now, the whole point is that they're supposed to set up that they're an odd couple, right? Martin Lawrence says, look, I'm not getting my sex at home. Let me have my fast food kind of thing. But when you stop and think about that for a minute, at some point, Will Smith's character had to drive Martin Lawrence through a drive-thru to get this food, right? But then he has to act surprised later that Martin's eating fast food in his car. It's often like whenever you get a scene in a movie where the characters start having a conversation where they're like, so what are we going to do about the thing the other day? And I always think like, well, what have you guys been talking about for the hour that you've been in the car before this happens?
That's interesting.
Like, do you not realize that he had to take him through a drive-thru window to get that food? And wouldn't he say to him, don't eat your fast food in my car before they get to this scene? It drives me nuts every time I watch it. I love how deep you're going
into that scene.
No one has ever thought of a Michael Bay movie with such depth as Sean O'Connell did in that moment.
The only reason why I didn't want to choose Bad Boys is because it's so early in his career. And there are, he has Pursuit of Happiness. A lot of people said Pursuit of Happiness. It's an amazing performance. And he's had some great,
when he finds out that he got the job.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. He's a tremendous actor. Much like Brad Pitt, I think a lot of times he gets overlooked. He gets considered more that he's a movie star more than an actor, but I think he's a tremendous actor as well, too. However.
And he's great in Gemini Man.
Yeah.
He's great in it.
Also, underrated movie of his, 7 Pounds.
That's also a really good film. Yes, it is. So, but if I'm picking favorite, if I were to pick a Will Smith movie to throw on right now, I would throw in the first Bad Boys because I think it's
the boys that are bad.
My favorite line in that movie is when Martin Lawrence gets beat up by the guy in the bathroom. And he's like looking through he's getting his ass kicked and he's looking through the fishbowl and Will Smith is watching the dancer dance with her shoes. And then, he gets totally soaked with toilet water and he finally beats the guy and he comes out and he's all disheveled and he's breathing heavy. And Will Smith says, "Who done tore off and whooped your ass now?" I think that's the greatest line. So that was my pick. All right, let's land this plane. Abin Khanna weighed in on social media, said, and Jim Mehta also, and many others, said The Pursuit of Happiness. Andy Erickson said Men in Black, the first one. Amanda Young said I Am Legend. And someone brought up with I Am Legend that much like Hanks in Castaway, he carries that entire movie by himself. I
can't watch that movie. I can't watch it with that dog, man. I can't do it.
I'll never see it again.
Yeah, never get the same. I can never watch it. I'll watch it in theaters. I'll never watch it again. In fact, it was on at the gym. I was at the gym one time, and I went actively, walked across the gym, and got the remote and changed the channel because I was like, I can't have this on.
Yeah, that dog scene, I can't. I'm sorry. Done.
Interesting.
Not happening.
And Saskia says Bad Boys. So a lot of great choices. A reminder, once again, we're doing the Gemini Man giveaway. The gifts are better than the film, I promise you. So head over to bit.ly/ReelBlend X Gemini Man. You can look at the ReelBlend Twitter account or the show description for the link to participate. So again, thank you guys so much for participating in #WillSmithBlend. Next week, #80s blend.
Yeah, baby.
We have been doing this experiment where we pick a decade, and we did 60s so far, and we did 70s so far, and we are up to the 80s. So next week, let us know your favorite 80s movie and why using #80sblend. You can, of course, do it on social media at the Twitter page @ReelBlend. While you're there, give us a follow, share us with some friends, and help us build up that army. You can also email your selection to ReelBlend@CinemaBlend.com. While you're doing that, drop us a review. Go over to iTunes, leave us a review. And while you are on social media, you can also give us all a follow at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, and at Sean_O'Connell. We have also, Gabe is saying, in a flurry of text messages last night, we believe that we have solidified the next meetup, the next ReelBlend meetup. Ooh. And I'm so confident in the fact that we're going to be able to pull this off that I'm going to tease it. We're going to Washington, D.C. We are going to have a ReelBlend meetup in Washington, D.C. And Gabe has said, can't give
Kevin, can your mom come?
Firm details on it yet.
Honestly?
Yeah.
She probably would.
She honestly has to be there.
Kevin's mom will be there.
That's a no-brainer.
That is a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, she actually has to be there for it.
I will call her. I mean, honestly, she's always looking to come up and visit, so that would be really funny.
We have just guaranteed that the four of us are going to get no attention at that show. Kevin's mom
My mom's going to take every photo.
The most popular person.
No one's going to be there except for my mom because she's the main fan. She's the only person who listens.
The point of the meetup, in addition to going to DC, where we know we have a lot of people who listen to us in DC, and that's largely thanks to Kevin's representation in the market too. But we hear from a lot of people from the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. But this will be tied to a celebration of episode number 100. Obviously, we're on number 87 now, so you guys start doing the math a little bit to figure out when we're going to be up in Washington, D.C. But the D.C. meetup is all but in the planning stages. So until next week, we'll be back with Ed Norton. Let us know what you guys thought of the Todd Phillips interview. Still let us know what you thought about the Joaquin Phoenix interview. We still have some amazing interviews planned for upcoming episodes, and we'll be transitioning into some of the bigger October films and the rest of the November films. And Judy, because it's timeless.
Also Judy.
Bringing it back up. Yes, also Judy. So until next week, thank you very much for listening to episode number 87 of ReelBlend. And
Dunkirk.
Did you say share?
Yeah.
Share?
Share?
I swear I thought you said share. Listen to our show.